What happens when a woman finally meets a genuinely good man, but still can't move forward? That's what we're talking about in today's episode.
Some people take one step forward, two steps back.
Sounds like a bit of a dance.
Yes.
Let's get into it. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Muslim Marriage Podcast, where we show you how to find and build a marriage that lasts as a Muslim. I'm Zahra Hassan.
And I'm AJ, and we've been married 4.5 years.
And if you haven't already subscribed to our channel on YouTube, please do. It really helps us out. And let's get started. So we haven't done a question and answer episode in a while. So what we're going to do, coming up on the end of our Green Flag series, we're going to go through a question from the Muslim Marriage subreddit, where a sister says, Assalamu alaikum. I am suffering quite a bit, alhamdulillah. I am 31 years old, the eldest of my family, and I bore a lot of burden since my father passed away at the age of 17. May Allah have mercy on him. I've never dated or thought about marriage due to the strict education and other matters. But recently, I realized that if I wait to fix everything for my family, I will never start my own life. So I agreed to consider the son of a friend of my late father after he gave my mom his phone number. Despite the sheer anxiety that talking with a man for this purpose brings, I went and met him twice in a public setting because if not, I would be single forever. I had already said no to so many proposals automatically without thinking. Then we spoke via text and audio messages, asked questions, all was serious and measured. Right at the first meeting, I felt he might be the one. During the summer, I liked him even more. He was very patient and sweet, never got angry despite me being myself. He is my age, the same kind of upbringing. I was shocked that nobody had advised me to get married earlier and that they had let me lead a life of self-denial up until this point. Then instead of proceeding, doubts started creeping in from my side about his money problems, which he shared with me, his lack of education, although he is intelligent, and him being from a neighboring country that is not my own. I shared those doubts with him. He answered calmly and objectively, "You do what you feel like." I hated myself for judging him when he was so nice and so respectful. I kept praying istikhara like I was in the beginning. I suffered because my mind was calculating and did not want to risk being wrong. Then he became distant, and he knew this was my weakness. I wanted him to meet my mother, but it did not happen. Although I fought against my doubts, he kept being distant, which aggravated them. I do not trust easily at all. I ended it 2 months ago because I felt utterly neglected, and he could not put an end to it. I still think about him after all this time. Now I suffer daily from realizing what I am missing. The sister goes on to give advice to other women who are in similar situations about getting married early, because she states, I am now discovering that my age is a liability and that the marriage is a market. And I was so immersed in my responsibilities and my traumas that I was not connected to my femininity. So that's the question. What are your thoughts?
If she is expressing any doubts on her decisions, it sounds like she made the correct decision, or at least the correct decision was made for her. Especially because she prayed istikhara on it.
Yeah.
And then it was at that time that he became more distant. That just seems like it's answering her prayers. If it was meant to be,
yeah,
then I feel like Allah would have encouraged his heart to be closer, not distant, right? The fact that he grew distant seems like that was the response.
So that makes perfect sense, right? Because that is the reality of everything. As Muslims, we believe in qadar, right?
Mm-hmm.
As Muslims, that we believe that something is written for you, then there's no way you're going to miss it.
Yeah.
So that's absolutely correct. But there's also this concept of learning, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like gaining wisdom from each situation and each interaction. So this post is actually fairly long. There's a lot I didn't write in here, but the overall theme is a lot of regret, where she regrets allowing her doubts to sort of dictate how she felt and what it was she did in the context of that talking stage.
Yeah.
So there is that idea of regret here. So are there any lessons to be learned? Do you think she made the right decision given the information that she had?
You mean like on her choices up until that point?
Yeah, because you're right. She's the one who eventually walked away after about 2 months, right? After about 2 months of there being this growing distance, it became intolerable, and she eventually walked away. What do you like? How do you think this talking stage, could it have gone better? Did she make the right decision in terms of voicing her doubts about the things that she voiced her doubts?
I don't think it could have gone any better, to be honest. Both sides were very honest with each other. He was honest with her about his money issues and his downfalls and all that.
Yeah.
Right? And she was honest with him about her concerns, you know?
That's fair.
And so his response was perfectly valid.
Yes.
Right? He said, do what you want to, or do what you feel like doing. And her response was perfectly valid, right? Understandably, it sounds like he took some emotional damage from that.
Yeah.
And began to distance himself from her.
That's what
I think for him, he thought to himself, it might be better for me to try to perhaps find someone who is not as concerned.
Yeah.
Right?
More accepting.
Yeah. Or more accepting, yeah. So he probably also wants to find someone who doesn't really care about the issues that he has. And she, in the other sense, would probably benefit from someone who doesn't have those issues in the first place, right? If it's a concern for her, there's more people out there.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You know, you don't have to force yourself into a situation.
So let me just tell you what I think based on what I've seen so far. Over the years, there's going to be certain patterns that develop in clients' decision making, and honestly in my own decision making. And there really is some truth to that phenomenon of being the eldest daughter. There really is. And particularly in this situation where she took on the responsibility of just making sure that the maintenance of her family dynamics and making sure that everybody was okay, to the point where she said, I realized that if I wait to fix everything for my family, I will never start my own life, because the nature of human life is that nothing is going to ever be fixed for someone else. Yeah. Right? There will always be something that needs fixing. Yeah. But the fact that she felt the need to fix everything for her family speaks to a certain personality type, or speaks to a certain trauma, and then trauma response. And I think that was dictating how things were going in this talking stage for this young lady. Having said that, through that lens, let's take a look at what actually happened. So
my philosophy, before we go there.
Okay.
My philosophy is that nothing is ever actually fixed.
Yes.
Until you're in your grave.
Correct.
You know?
Yeah.
Entropy, decisions, choices, everything changes.
Of course.
Everything's meant to change because it's a test.
Yes.
And the test only really finishes once you're done.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. It's like that line from calculus where the limit is approaching some number infinitely, but never actually reaches the number infinitely. Yeah. But there is this illusion that if we wait just a little bit longer, have a little bit more graph paper, it's never going to reach. So similarly, there will never be a steady state where everybody's fine, happy, and dandy, and I can now comfortably move on with my life. That's just not how everything works, right? You just need to find a way to balance your responsibilities at home with your responsibilities with your new home. That's the reality.
It takes a healthy person to choose a point on that line and say, this is the point I'm comfortable with. Exactly. And different people will have different comfort zones, you know? The closer you get to one, the more comfort theoretically you can experience. But your tolerance is what changes things. There are people that are perfectly happy just in a room with a couch and a TV and a pizza box. that might be 0.9
Yes.
to other people.
Yeah.
It might be further away from 1.
Yes.
Right?
But
it might be 0.1 to some people. They might not ever experience that.
So it's
Different people have different comfort zones.
It's all relative.
Yeah.
Okay. Honestly, it's just giving me flashbacks to grade 12 calculus, and I would really rather not. So let's leave it there. And in terms,
we found your comfort zone.
It's not in calculus.
0.5.
Thank you. So with respect to this young lady, if we take that context of her mental state, like just an overall very quick summary of her mental state and possible underlying core wounds, and now take a look at this relationship. You have a gentleman who is from the son, let me just read it again correctly, the son of a friend of her late father.
Yeah.
So this is likely somebody who was known to her family and to her community. And given that that's the case, most likely this was a person who was heavily pre-vetted. And a lot of the information that she's having difficulty with is probably information that she knew going in, and that her family was well aware of going in. Like
her family, sure, I think.
Yeah.
Like her father would certainly know.
Have known.
My father, Allah rest his soul, had many friends.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I didn't know their children.
Yeah. No, but her mother, her family would have discussed with her. Like I've had those discussions with my family. Whenever a family friend would be presented, they would say, "This is so you're gonna meet so and so on such and such date," and I would have questions, and then they would answer the questions. So I imagine that conversation would take place. So it would be known to both, most likely her, but definitely to her family, that they're not living in the same country. It would be known with respect to his education up until that point, what that was. And if there are any financial difficulties, it's probably known, right? It's probably something that his family, or for sure his family, but her family would probably be aware of as well. So these are all known knowns going into this talking stage. And the fact that she's going into the talking stage with these known knowns that she later becomes uncomfortable with, it's important to highlight there's two possibilities, right? The first possibility is that knowing she's going to be uncomfortable with this was an easier talking stage for her to go into, because there's some level of emotional unavailability on her part. So even though that you feel there are times, right, and I've certainly been through this time, where you feel like I'm ready for commitment, I'm ready for companionship, I'm ready for marriage, right? This is something that I want, let me move forward towards it. But if you have all these unhealed traumas or core wounds that are living in your subconscious that are going to be triggered by things like vulnerability that is required in marriage, that is going to be triggered by things like possibility of rejection, right? Or the possibility of abandonment, or whatever is your fear. The reality is your subconscious does a very good job at trying to protect you from having to deal with these fears. So it might, there's a good chance, and I've seen it happen all the time, where she'll know that this is probably not going to work out because there are these issues. Therefore, let me go ahead with this talking stage so that I can, on a conscious level, yes, I'm doing everything I can to go forward with marriage, but on a subconscious level, you're protecting yourself by going forward with a situation that you know is not going to lead anywhere. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So this is that there's a little bit of self-sabotage there that we engage in, right? For those of us who have that fear of vulnerability, of having to be seen, because when you're seen, what happens? There's the odds of you having to be rejected go dramatically up.
Yeah.
If nobody sees you, then they never get a chance to reject you, right? So this is that anxiety that quite many eldest daughters will feel whenever they go into a talking stage with somebody who it looks like it might work out with, and then is very terrifying. It's very scary.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You know what I realized just now? Why they named that app Hinge,
Oh,
right?
yes.
Muslims don't use it primarily, I would hope, but I figured out why.
Why?
Because they said if one door closes, another one opens.
Oh.
You know,
Oh.
so that's probably why they named it Hinge.
That makes sense.
It also leads to unhinged people, because unhinged people don't need to wait for the door to open.
Oh.
They just go right through it. They have no boundaries. That's a lesson to everyone. You need to become unhinged in order to increase your chances of meeting the right one.
Please don't do that. It would, I mean, maybe that's why they call Hinge. It would be better if they called it Hinged, that everybody here on the app has been vetted and is hinged.
Yeah.
There are no unhinged.
There are no unhinged.
In fact, that would be an amazing name for an app. Just, there are no unhinged here.
That's going to be very expensive, cost expensive
It would be
to vet them.
Those of us who need the reassurance, we would pay.
Every single person would need to have a psychiatric evaluation.
That would be an amazing app. But hopefully that makes sense, right? So that's the first possibility of why this young lady potentially agreed, knowing these things that would be concerns later on. The second possibility is that these were not concerns, right? When she first met this young man, and she knew that he was living in a different country and he had these financial issues, most likely, I'm guessing, based on the context, right? And that she also had a good idea about the education level, right? These things were most likely known. They probably weren't concerns, but after having gone into a talking stage and speaking to him, where she mentions, okay, I can see this is probably going to work out, because there's some compatibility here, and he seems like he's a genuine individual. And it's important to notice the context of this being a friend of the family, which is, those individuals tend to be weighed more heavily in our minds because there's that family connection. Yeah. But all of these things are going in a positive direction. Then it's literally the same core wound that would come up again, but it would just manifest in this way now that, hey, things are going well. If you continue down this track, you might have to marry this individual. Mm-hmm. And if you marry this individual, you're going to have to be a wife. And that means that you're going to have to be emotionally vulnerable to this person. And they're going to have to take like in an emotional way, take a look at you and assess you in a way that you haven't really been assessed by anyone else. And that, again, is terrifying. So we need to stop this from happening. And again, it's the subconscious at work. Will, in order to protect you, start finding things that are wrong that are not really wrong, or that were not wrong before, right? So either way, it's the same core wound that's at play, that has now resulted in there being a problem with things that were not a problem at the beginning of that relationship. Mm-hmm. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, let's take a look at the things that she's having a concern with. All right. Any concern or any preference that an individual has is valid at the end of the day. But if you speak to people who have been married for very long periods of time, especially those who have been divorced and then married for very long periods of time, I'm pretty sure that they will give you the consensus that the things that we think are super important when we are younger and in our talking stages are really not that important for making a marriage work, right? So I've had this conversation many times with my clients that education level doesn't speak to intelligence. It really doesn't, right? So you're going to come across many people who have multiple degrees, who have PhDs, sometimes multiple PhDs, who don't do well in the day-to-day high-stress environments of having children and having to balance multiple different things, right? So intelligence in a particular subject, which is what education is, right? It's usually a lot of a lot of expertise in one very specific area, does not always translate into wisdom, which is the actual characteristic that makes a marriage work, that we are looking for in a spouse. Like we there are so many hadiths. Like I'm not my memory is not the best, right? But I just tend to remember the bottom line TLDR of the hadiths. There are many hadiths that point to the most important characteristics of a man in general are, I think, wisdom and strength, but definitely wisdom. And strength is not always just physical strength, right? But wisdom. And the older I get, the more life experience I have, I cannot tell you how true that is.
Yeah.
So having an understanding that I need somebody who is academically well suited is not really always going to translate into a healthy marriage. The second thing that she was concerned about is financial situation. So I don't know what the gentleman's financial situation is, right? But definitely there are going to be some financial circumstances that are going to make things unnecessarily hard. So for instance, if you are in a talking stage with someone and you find out, and there was an individual who I found out had $75,000 of personal debt. That was very scary.
That is something.
Yeah, because that meant that had we become married, then that would be my person. That's way too much debt, right? So it could be. I'm not sure what the gentleman's financial situation is, but it could be quite valid that some financial circumstances can preclude marriage even being possible.
Yeah.
Right. So that I agree with that one. That one could be valid. And finally, the fact that they do not live in the same country, but I think she said they live in adjacent countries.
Yeah, adjacent countries.
Which
culturally would be
Yeah.
almost identical, if anything.
Yeah.
Unless you're living in Europe.
Yes, but what's important is that she knew this is something that was known, right? So it's that's a solvable issue. If this is a father's family friend, I'm assuming shared culture, probably shared language. These are big assumptions, but I think these are fair assumptions. Living in the next country over is not so bad. Even if it's large countries, for instance, if one of them is living in Canada and the other one's living in the United States. And
I think the culture has to be different for that to be her concern.
Really?
Yeah.
I that's not the impression I got.
Do you think it's just because there's like distance to travel to meet family?
I think so. I think that was her concern. So if we take a look, let's just take a look. She said he is my age, the same kind of upbringing, and him being from a neighboring country that's not my own. Right? So I get either of us could be right? Let's say they are not the same cultural background and they are different cultural backgrounds. Again, this is a relatively known individual, I'm assuming.
The same kind of upbringing does sort of give the impression of same culture. Okay.
So either way, this is there's a lot of people that my parents are friends with who are not Somali because we're Somali.
Yeah.
So, and they have pretty good tabs on what's going on with them, what's going on with their children, etc. So even if they are different cultural backgrounds, it's going to be similar enough that their parents were friends, and that this individual, I cannot overstate how important it is that this is not a complete stranger.
Right.
That this is somebody who is somewhat known to her family. So this is for the listener. When you are looking for a spouse and there's someone that is suggested to you by your family or by your friends that is coming in as a reference, this is the equivalent of, let's say you need you have a new car and you want to go get it checked out by a mechanic.
Yeah.
And you are in a place where this is your first car. You've never had to go get checked out by a mechanic. So there's a very big difference between finding one online and your friend telling you, this is my mechanic that I've been using for 10 years. You're going to trust the one that your friend told you because they're coming pre-vetted. So similarly, in fact, not similarly, it's almost exact analogy. Someone who's coming pre-vetted because they're known to your family is much more heavy. It's much more easy to evaluate because there's less for you to have to evaluate. First of all, you'll have an idea this person is nothing is a guarantee, but there's a better chance that this person is relatively safe. There's a better chance that this person is who they say they are. That they're intention is for marriage. Like, so much of the work that has to be done for a complete stranger is already done for you. Having said all of that, the most important thing to remember is that the reason why this young lady is having difficulty with the situation, personally, I think, is because of the core wounds. Core wounds related to safety and security. And there's probably also core wounds related to self-worth, just because of how common those are in young women. But I think her core wounds are related to safety and security, and probably suffers from things like hypervigilance. And another one is people pleasing. I think she's probably that person in her family who does all of the emotional and also literal work in keeping things going. The day-to-day maintenance of the home and the emotional state of all the individuals in the home going.
Pizza.
Okay. Pizza?
Pizza.
All right.
Yeah, she probably makes pizza.
Makes pizza?
Yeah.
In order to keep everyone going?
It keeps me going.
Oh, for sustenance.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So she does.
The family breaks down without pizza.
Okay. All right. So she probably does all of the little things in order to keep a house going. And whenever I come across a client, either a man or a woman, who is that person in their family, I can see it on their face. There's a certain level of day-to-day anxiety and the stress that they live in, and a heightened sense of their nervous system is always a little bit more activated than the average bear. And that you can see it on their face. You can see it in the way that they interact with everyone else. Now, that is probably resulting in that hypervigilance, that sense of project management, that sense of, is this really safe? That's probably determining who she's going to end up with. Simply because whenever she ends up with this gentleman who is otherwise, based on what I've read, right, it might be totally left field, but based on what I've read, is otherwise a genuine individual who respects her boundaries, communicates clearly from the very beginning, and is very good at putting up his own boundaries of saying, it would have been better had he been able to say, this is probably not going to work out. But even the slow fade away is a boundary is in and of itself. So this individual probably would have been a fairly good match for her, right? But her being unable to see that, or being able to see it and then push it away, unfortunately, that pattern is not a one-off. If you're not paying attention, if you're not seeing what it is that happened and unpacking what it is that happened in this talking stage, this can be a repeated pattern, right? So one of the mistakes that a lot of people make, both men and women, right? But I coach primarily women, that's why I always say women. But one of the mistakes that people make is they mistake overthinking for vetting. The two are not the same. So that's the mistake that happened here, is that she was thinking that I'm vetting this individual, but he already came in pre-vetted. Instead, what she was doing was overthinking. And in this case, it probably wasn't even overthinking. It was more likely rumination, right? Rumination is when the thoughts themselves are determined by your core wounds. And so whenever you feel badly, you have negative emotions, you do this thing where you try to think your way to feeling better by having these cyclical thoughts of, what did I say that made me feel so bad? I can't believe I said that. Why did I say that? And then you just go back into this there's a cyclical nature to it, and then inevitably makes you feel worse. So I suspect that's what's going on. Overthinking, probably all the way in the realm of rumination. And that's what led to the breakdown of this talking stage.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense, yes. It's honestly, for her, it's a lot to think of, but I think her waiting so long to try to get things taken care of doesn't really make much sense to me, because a husband necessarily isn't going to prevent you from being able to also take care of your family, right? Or is she worried that with a husband she would have children and then she'd be too busy to take care of her family?
These are not rational thoughts. right? So because most of this is happening in the subconscious plane, the subconscious does not operate on a rational level. Most likely what she's feeling is guilt that if I leave my family, things will fall apart, which is not the case. Almost never the case, right? But because you spend so much energy in your day-to-day energy of making sure that everybody is emotionally stable, that again the day-to-day of the house is running well, that little paperwork is taken care of, and did you guys throw out the garbage? Don't forget to throw out the garbage, and all of the mental load that comes with making a house go, because she's taking so much of that responsibility on herself. You get to a place where you feel like no one else can take that responsibility. No one else is qualified except for me. And this is not rational. So because no one else is qualified, if I leave, it will all fall apart. So it's, again, not rational and very rarely true.
Yeah.
What's true is that if you do take a step, you taking on the burden, right, was a voluntary thing. And delegation is more than likely possible, right? I'm guessing, but there's probably other family members who can help her, who have maybe siblings, her mother, other people, who can share the mental load and on all the other mental load, emotional burden of keeping the family and the household going. So it's unnecessary. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So for all of the eldest children there, it's probably unnecessary. We're probably doing more than is needed because of our original wound of safety and security, that we feel like things are not safe and secure. Therefore, let me be there. If I hold it together, if I do enough, if I just do enough, everything is going to be fine.
I think she could add that. She can add that to her resume.
A resume?
Right? Yeah.
Like on a literal resume, like
work
LinkedIn?
resume, yeah.
Yeah.
Like she could phrase it in a fancy way, like saying administered and facilitated logistical support for clients in both the academic field as well as various different industries within the community. AKA, I pack lunch for my family.
Honestly, whenever I would be coming across these individuals in a hiring format,
yeah,
I can smell them a mile away, and they make the best workers. And even I myself, I'm an eldest daughter, right? So everything I'm saying from personal experience as well. Yeah, we make the best workers. So when we tell an employer we're hard workers, that's what we mean, right? When we say we're perfectionists, it's the reason why we're perfectionists is because if we don't remind everyone 10 times that, Thursday is garbage pickup day and it doesn't get picked up, it feels like the world will cave in. So we're perfectionists, right?
Yeah.
So this is the mistake that a lot of people make. It's important to point this out, that overthinking is not vetting. Vetting is vetting. Vetting is based on evidence and rational analysis. Right? The vetting skills that I teach people are based on having seen hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of women and relationships, and what's happened from talking stage to marriage, and what works and what doesn't work. Right? So having seen a red flag hundreds of times, I now know for sure this is a red flag. Therefore, if you see it, you should accept it as a red flag and walk away from it. Like vetting based on this evidence, like hard evidence of what I have seen over the years, right?
Yeah.
Or what I have read that someone else has seen. And rational analysis. Overthinking is not based on any of that. Overthinking is based on just intentions, good intentions, and more often than not, core wounds.
Yeah.
Right. So if you let your core wounds run the show, you're going to end up pushing away the genuine good men, just like that happened in this case, and overestimating a red flagged individual.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's everything.
It's like the people that when they're first learning how to drive, they have to actively think about everything.
Yeah.
And they double guess themselves. But then once you are driving for a couple of years and you're already well acquainted, you'll sometimes find yourself getting in your car, and then your next memory is you're at home.
Yeah.
And you look up and you're like, how'd I get here?
Yeah.
Because that process is so natural to you now.
So that's literally what I teach people with respect to vetting. Like, teach them specific concepts of if you see A, this means B. And I write it down in a very specific chart, so that there is no thinking involved, right? It's just if you see A, therefore it's B, therefore walk away. Or if you see C, it might mean D. You might want to give this person a chance. Like, just very specific vetting rules based on evidence, and then you just wake up and you're at home. So that should be everything for this episode. Is there anything that we're missing?
No. Yeah, I think we're good, actually.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So if you've made it this far, Jazaa K'Allah Khayr. We appreciate you for choosing to spend your time with us. We know how valuable that is. If you haven't already subscribed to our channel, please subscribe. Even if you're on a podcast, go onto YouTube and subscribe. It really, really helps us out. And if you are a single woman and you are in the process of searching for a spouse, but you have no idea, or you're not really sure how to assess compatibility for the people you are in talking stages with, feel free to download my compatibility guide for free using the link in the description below. I think I think that's everything. So Jazaa K'Allah Khayr. Have a wonderful week. Stay safe, and assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.